What is up, everybody? Welcome back to No Counters, No Combos. This video has been super heavily requested for quite some time. It's taken me a little bit of more time than I thought to get it out. I just wanted to make sure that everything was fine-tuned and the way I wanted it to be so that I could showcase it so that you guys can have success the way I have success. So what I'm going to be bringing you today is an updated, I don't know even how many updates this is already, but it's another Mass Saiyan deck. It is just red-black. There's no other colors, it's just red and black. This is probably going to be my last Mass Saiyan deck profile on this channel, just because I feel like there's just an abundance of deck profiles on my channel already consisting of Mass Saiyan, so I don't want to just keep building Mass Saiyan decks. I want to build other decks and test other decks. But you guys have asked, so I'm going to bring it to you, and I'm going to show you the cards that I run in this version of the build, which I honestly think is the best version. So I'm going to just say this ahead of time. This video might go a little longer than usual, just because it's going to be a little more in-depth than just a regular deck profile. But I'm going to try to get through as smoothly as possible for you guys, and I'm going to show you and talk about some of the cards that we chose to put in this build. So without further ado, let's get right into it. I'm going to show you guys the red cards first. I use 4 Saiyan Kaaba. This card is still a staple in this deck. It's one of the ways of self-awakening. And believe it or not, Kaaba is a very good late-game pressure card. Since Kaaba has been out, it's been one of the better one-drops in the game. But it's been used earlier in most matches to self-awaken. In this deck, you have other options of self-awakening, and the best part is you don't have to awaken to put pressure on the leader because of Mass Saiyan's ability, so you can just forego that, and you don't have to awaken to win, but it does help. Now, Kaaba does put a lot of late-game pressure because people don't expect it late game. For just one red energy, being able to do 15k double strike, you already are doing damage without comboing, so it makes Kaaba a dual threat in this deck, which is what we want. We want to maximize our threats, and we want to play as many threats for as little cost as possible. Then, of course, this is a Mass Saiyan deck. You have to run 4 double strike Champas. I have experimented with the one-drop Champa that helps fish him out, but I don't like it because I don't like leaving too many cards on board for my opponent to either blow up or, you know, whatever they do with cards on board. I like to have as minimal cards on board as possible. And, you know, even though you could use it as a free 5k combo, I just found it, you know, the deck space is a little too tight to just use that card. So basically what I do is just I hard mulligan for Champa early game. Like if I don't get a Champa in my opening hand, I usually send back whatever to try to dig for a Champa. Because you need this card to go off properly in the deck. The worst thing you could do is mill it. There are ways of getting it back, which you'll see later in the deck profile, but for the most part, you want to open up with at least 1 or 2 Champas, which is going to really, you know, overpressure your opponent and get you to where you need to be. The next card I use is 4 Bodyguard Logic. I have a love-hate with this card, but when you look at it, you know, face value, yeah, it's a 15k blocker, which is good, but what makes this card good is if your opponent has a board and you don't, he comes out for free. So the reason I like him is because he's also a dual threat. He's a 15k blocker, which can help you defend, but he's also a 15k attacker. So if you need to put pressure on your opponent and you're just looking for that extra damage, you could use Logic offensively. I felt like I was using him too defensively in earlier builds. That's why I kind of experimented with him, taking him out. But the fact that he's free, he's 15k attack, and he's a free 5k combo makes this card essential to the deck. Worst case scenario, if you see too many of them, you can always charge for red energy, which is never a bad thing. But you want to be able to put out threats in this deck without using a lot of energy. There's a player that goes to my locals. His name is Jason. Shout out to you, Jason, if you're watching. Thank you so much for your input. He's also a Mass Saiyan player. He's a really good player, guys. Very, very good player. We were talking about, you know, how many different ways you can build this deck, and he brought it to my attention, you know, that what makes Mass Saiyan good is that its threats are very inexpensive. You're talking about 1 to 2 drop threats at most, which helps you in a way put multiple threats on board for such little energy. And if you play the deck properly, or if it's piloted the right way, you can maximize that damage and you can overwhelm your opponent very, very quickly. So I like Logic because it's a dual threat like the Kaaba. I can use him as a blocker if I need to play early defense, or if I need a late game push, I can always have him on board for an extra attack. Then we get into 4 Topos. Topo is a very, very good card. I don't like seeing him too early, but if I do see him early, I just charge him for red energy. What makes him good is he's the deck's negate. He's a walking negate for the deck, but also he's a 2-drop threat when you're awakened. Again, you know, you want to be able to maximize your threats, so you want to be able to bring out as much as you can for as little energy, because you don't want to charge too much energy in this deck. Once you get to turn 4 or 5, you're really pushing late game at that point. Sometimes if you get to turn 6, you don't survive, because there's a lot of cards out there that come out on turn 6 that can really shut down this deck, like the SR Fu from set 3, or, you know, if they're bringing out, like, if you're playing the Mirror and they bring out their 5-drop Super Saiyan 3 Bardock, you kind of lose. So you really want to win between turns 3 and 5 with this deck. And Topo allows you to play defense and then put a threat on board for next turn. The good thing about him is, even though he's primarily your negate in this deck, you can still hard cast him for 2 energy on offense. Because you have your leader awaken, or if your opponent's awaken. If a leader has 15,000 or more power, you can bring him out for 2 energy. So because Mass Saiyan has the effect that you mill 3 cards, if one of them is red, he gains 5k. On his front side, he becomes a 15k attacker. So if you're not awakened late game and you have enough energy to play the Topo, you can play him on offense and use him to swing. And he can clear little guys off board to restand, so he does put a lot of pressure on your opponent. He's just a very, very good card. I definitely recommend 4. Just because, if anything, you can use them as energy, but I have seen people run 3. I like 4. If anything, it's a free 5k combo, so it's not too bad. Topo is a very excellent card. Then we're getting into the Unbreakable Goku. This card is easily the best combo card from set 3. You know, paying 1 energy for 10k and drawing a card. It's another super combo, so you're essentially playing 8 super combos in your deck. This card is very, very good, you know, just to get in that extra damage. You know, 10k combo is very, very good, and drawing a card to replace itself is amazing. So the way this deck works is, there's 2 ways of playing it. You can play early game aggro, or you can just tempo out early and then just push for your last 2 or 3 turns. So you can either dump your hand in the beginning, or you can hold your cards till the end and you know, make alpha strikes much more aggressive. It just depends on who you're playing against. If you're playing against apes, you definitely want to beat them as soon as possible, so you want to early game aggro as much as you possibly can. But if you're playing any type of veggies or control deck, you kind of want to see how it goes, test the waters, so to speak. But this card's very good because, you know, it's a 10k draw, which is amazing in this game. You do have to tap an energy, which, you know, it would be, obviously if it was free, it would be broken, but, you know, you take the good with the bad, and honestly, tapping 1 energy for 10k and drawing is not too bad at all. Very good card. And then the last red card I play is 2 Miraculous Comeback Ultimate Gohan. This I owe completely to Jason, the player that I mentioned before. Shout out to you again, Jason. He plays this card as well, and he brought it to my attention. You know, Miraculous Comeback Gohan is good for multiple reasons. The main reason is you can play him for 2 energy if you meet the requirements. So a 2-drop 25k double striker is insane. You know, it's insane. So you know, you can play this card late game. What makes him really, really good is in the 8 matchup, if they're trying to get that last cute blocker in, you can just swing. If they've already out-comboed all your other threats and they really don't have much in their hand, you can swing at the blocker. And if they choose to block, they're still going to take 2 damage if that card gets destroyed. So, you know, it kills blockers, which is what you kind of want in your 8 matchup, because that's still probably the toughest matchup with this deck is against apes. So he alone, if you play it properly, you can kill the 8 matchup just by swinging into a blocker or swinging into, you know, the leader and forcing them to block. You obviously want to have a couple cards in your hand so you can combo to get him over to make sure that that damage gets in. But Miraculous Comeback Gohan is phenomenal. I've loved this card ever since it came out. Never had the opportunity to play it in a deck, but after that conversation I had with Jason, it makes a lot of sense to be able to utilize him properly. And you just, like I said, you want to be able to play out multiple threats for very little energy. So I would definitely recommend playing this card. 2 is the perfect number. You don't need more than 2. So that's all the reds. Onto the black. I believe it's 22 red cards. Which we'll go over the ratios at the end of the deck. But onto the black cards, you're playing 4 super combos. This is self-explanatory. This is the best super combo in the game. Obviously, there's the Shugesh argument, but Shugesh can only be used with a yellow leader, so there's that. This card has no leader color restriction. You can use it with any leader. As long as you're playing the overall mechanic in the deck and you get 5 in your warp, you can use this card. And you can use it before you're at 4 or less life. So you can use this with 8 life if you want to play defense early. Very, very good card. Excellent super combo. And there's definitely ways of getting it back, so you don't have to worry about if you mill it off. Self-explanatory. Then I'm playing 3 of Relentless Destruction Mira. The reason I'm playing this card is 2 reasons. I used to play Planet M2 instead of this, and it was an even 25-25 red to black ratio. But I felt like I was playing... The way the ratios were working out as far as the Mass Saiyan leader ability, I would mill off more reds than blacks. And to be honest, the critical on the leader is much more important than the 5k power. So you kind of want to edge out your black over your red a little bit, so it makes the ratios not as wonky. So when you mill, you not guarantee, but you have a better shot of getting a black card. So just by adding 3 more of the black cards and putting the ratio from 25 and 25 to 28 and 22, 28 black cards, 22 red cards, I felt like there was much more efficiency with getting the leader's ability off properly and getting that critical mill. Also, it's a good card because it's an overwhelm of 3 and it takes a card out of your opponent's hand. So it's 1 less card they have to combo with. So if you play this late game and you rip that 1 card out of their hand that they were going to, either it was a negate or something, you can, it's very devastating. Hand destruction is a very devastating mechanic in any card game. So being able to time these properly and use them to your advantage is going to help you in the long run. I like the card. I recommend trying it out. But if you prefer the M2, you can play M2 over this card. That's what I used to do. Then we still have 3 Time Patrol Trunks. I debated taking this card out of the deck just because I felt like it wasn't needed, but then I realized how good this card is. It helps you filter through your deck. If you don't get the pieces you need, and if you're going first, it gives you a turn 1 play. Because even though it might seem wasteful, you can activate the Mass Saiyan ability on your first turn, even though you can't attack. Put 3 in the warp, overwhelm, look at the top 2. Then you can correct your colors in your hands, or you can predict your next draws, or whatever the case may be. And then at the end of the turn, he goes to the warp. So there's already 5 cards in your warp, 1 more card, and you've activated your super combo. Trunks is a very, very good card. I like him earlier. I like him earlier rather than later. Towards the late game, he usually either becomes a combo piece or just a chargeable energy. But he's a very, very good card because he helps you dig for what you need, either to get your combo pieces or to get anything that you might require to give yourself the advantage over your opponent. It's a very, very good card. He's the best overwhelm card in the entire game. He's always going to be that because it's so versatile, can be used with any deck. That's why his price tag is so hefty. Then we have 3 of the Mirror from the Darkness. This card is very, very good. It's kind of essential with the deck because it gives you another critical attacker. There's a very strong turn 1 play where if you're attacking first and you're going second, so you're playing on the draw, you can activate Mass Saiyan's effect. You can attack for critical with the Double Strike Champa. So you're putting 4 cards in your grave. You've already done 2 damage critical. Putting 4 cards in your drop. Overwhelm, bring him out. You do another critical damage. You just did 3 critical damage in 1 turn. You're bringing him down from 8 to 5 already just in 1 swing. He's very, very good. Puts a lot of pressure on your opponent. Is a free 5k combo, if anything. And again, you want to make sure that you can put out threats without having to utilize too much energy. Most of the overwhelm cards in this deck are free. You just have to meet the requirement for the cost in the grave or in the drop area. And it's very easy to put you know, 3 to 5 cards in your drop area every turn. So turn on your Overwhelm cards, make it easier for you to utilize their power, because Overwhelm is a very, very strong mechanic in the game right now, and I think this card is very, very good. The next card we have is 3 Power Overseeing Time Trunks. This is the second best Overwhelm card in the entire game. If it didn't require 2 energies and only required 1, it would probably be the best Overwhelm card in the game. But I love this card. It's so good. You guys need to get this card as soon as you possibly can before it completely gets ridiculously overpriced. This card did not see a lot of play in the beginning. People preferred Killer Sword Trunks over this guy, but this guy's just so much better. Being able to Overwhelm for 2, 20k body on board with Double Strike, and getting a battle card back from your warp to your hand, you can essentially add anything you want. You can add a Champa, you can add a Gohan, you can add the super combo, whatever you want, you can add it back to your hand. So depending on what state of game you're in, you're going to add something that's going to help you extend or play defense next turn. It's just a very, very good card, and it's one of my best dark plot targets, which I'll get into. It's just so good. I recommend playing it. If you guys don't have them now, pick them up while you can. They're like $6 or $7 right now. They're going to go up. They're going to be more expensive, trust me. Then I'm playing 3 Awakened Warrior Bardock. He's essentially just a 20k double striker for 4 energy. So you just Overwhelm for 4 and you have him. He puts pressure on board. This card's very, very good against Cell. The Cell matchup is one of the easier matchups because you don't really need to play with a hand. You just need to be able to play that one good black card and then just go from there. He puts a lot of pressure on your opponent. 25k is usually the sweet spot in this game when you want to swing or when you want to attack, because it forces your opponent to combo with 2 cards. But if you're playing the deck the right way, you kind of bait them out with your free ones first, and then you extend with your bigger cards depending on where you're at. It's very easy to bring your opponent down from 8 life to 5 life, and then from 5 life to 3 life. From 3 life to 2 life is tricky depending on how you want to do it, but once you get them in lethal, which is 2 life, you can just kind of swing for days. And this card helps you do that. Very, very good card. Then we're playing 3 of the Increasing Evil Mass Saiyan. This is another Way of Awakening. Very, very good card. It's Overwhelm for 4, play 1 energy, and then you take a card out of your life and destroy a card in your opponent's field. Very, very good against veggies. Very, very good if for some reason your opponent Shugeshes their King Vegeta a turn early and you have this in hand. You can warp and send that King Vegeta to the warp, delaying their evolution a turn. So you want to make sure that you do that. Also, it's another 20k attacker. It's a free 5k. Worst case scenario, you can use it for a combo card or chargeable energy if it's too late in the game. Very, very good card. It's definitely has an interesting interaction with the next card I'm going to show you, which is the original Mass Saiyan from the Heroes and Villains expansion. This card is still very, very powerful. However, it doesn't destroy blockers. So it's not that it's not as good as this Mass Saiyan, it's just different. So having both of them in the deck is probably where you want to be at. I run 3 of the other and 2 of him simply because he's a 5. He's a 5 drop and the other one's a 4 drop. It's much easier to get 4 in your drop than it is to get 5 in your drop. But he essentially comes out and he gets rid of all your opponent's veggies. So he's a very, very good card against the veggie matchup because you can kill all the Kaabas. You can kill 2 of the Kaabas and another card so that they can't play Kales for free. And he's a 20k double striker, so he does put pressure late game. And then the last black battle card I use is Scientist Fu. This card is too good. It's basically a Prince of Speed for 1 energy. You just Overwhelm 7, which is not hard to do. Okay, play 1 energy. It's 25k double strike and draws 2 cards. It's a very, very good card. It's very good against the Cell matchup. After they Cell chain you, they put you down to 3 cards. You bring him out, draw 2 cards, and you swing for double strike. Like I said, 25k is a sweet spot. You don't even need to combo on this guy if you don't want to, unless you know you're going to get game. It's just a very, very good card, guys. It's one of the more expensive cards because it is a tournament promo or a TP promo. But it's pretty reasonable. I think you can get like a non-foil for like 15. And I think the foil is like 17 or 18, maybe even 20. But it's a very, very good card. I think 2 is the perfect number. I don't want to play too many of him. I don't want to see him early. I want to see him late game. And if I mill it off, I mill it off. It's no big deal. But I have had a lot of success with this card, so I definitely recommend using it. And then the last 2 black cards I play in the deck are 2 dark plots. I did mention before that my favorite dark plot target is Time Overseeing Trunks, simply because his double strike doesn't get turned on by Overwhelm. So you don't have to Overwhelm him to give him double strike. His double strike is just, it's part of his card. Like, it's a permanent double strike. You don't have to get it from Overwhelm. A lot of the cards activate their skills when they're overwhelmed, but that Trunks doesn't. So I like to dark plot for him. You're essentially putting a 20k body on board for 1 energy, because if you dark plot a card with the Overwhelm key skill, you get to restand 3 of your energies. So it's super plus because you're putting a body on board, another threat late game. So I definitely recommend checking out that combo, guys. Dark plot into Trunks, you know, especially for late game pressure. So that's the deck. I mean, Mass Saiyan, as you guys know, I've been playing it since it came out. It's not my favorite leader, but my favorite leader is the yellow Bardock from set 3. But my most competitive leader, as far as like success in the meta, has been Mass Saiyan. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You know, it's definitely the best deck I have. It's definitely the most competitive deck I've built. So I'm gonna continue to play it. You know, Tournament of Power is right around the corner, so I'll experiment with some other decks. But until set 4 comes out, you know, I don't think Tournament of Power is gonna be meta defining. So I think Mass Saiyan is gonna still have a pretty good place in the meta moving forward until we see what happens with set 4. But this is it. This is the red-black Mass Saiyan deck that everybody has asked for. Try it out. You know, make your changes accordingly to fit your play style. But it's a very, very good deck. It's not the easiest deck to play. You have to know when to take damage, and you have to know when to activate his ability, because you don't want to deck yourself out. But it's a very, very strong, aggressive deck for those of you who just want to win super, super fast. And it has very good matchups against most of the decks in the meta. I think the toughest matchup might be Pan, just because Pan plays defense so early and then late game just floods the board with attackers. And it's kind of hard to get rid of multiple attackers or to defend against multiple attackers, especially if they have double strike. So the Pan matchup, you just kind of want to rush them down super aggro and beat them by like turn 3 or 4 before they can really go off with like chain attack Trunkses and everything. But other than that, I think it has a really good matchup against Veggies. It has a pretty good, decent matchup against Apes. The Mirror is a very hard matchup. That's going to come down to skill and RNG, kind of, to see what you draw, what you mill, and stuff like that. But as far as a place in the meta, I would probably put Mass Saiyan in the top 3 as far as leaders. Everybody knows how I feel about SS3, or the Goku leader. I think that's the best leader in the game right now, just because it's so versatile. But the second best leader in the game is probably, if not Mass Saiyan, maybe Pan. I don't know. Honestly, it's probably a yellow leader. I don't know. I mean, probably Ginyu, because everybody's using Ginyu right now for their yellow leaders. I just don't like Ginyu too much, but SS3 hands down is the best leader in the format right now. And the Red Khalifa leader is really good too. I don't know. Spots 2 from 2 and 3 is up for debate, but SS3 has that soul spot because you can literally play it with any color. But aside from that, guys, this has been my Mass Saiyan deck profile. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Let me know if there's any changes you would make, if there's any tech cards you have to recommend. This is the final build I'm going to be playing. I'm not going to do any more updates on this deck just because I've done too many already, and there's just not any other cards I'm going to be experimenting with. What you see is what I'm going to be playing until set 4 comes out. It's just the way it is. Shout out to all of you guys who plan on going to the ARG in Hartford, Connecticut. I wish you guys the best of luck. I unfortunately will not be able to make it. I can't because I have work that weekend and I can't get out of it. So I wish you guys the best of luck. Thank you guys so much for the continuing support. Thank you for all your subscribes, all your comments, all the feedback in the Discord channels. You know, I love this community, and I especially love our little community that we have here at No Counters, No Combos. Thank you guys for being a part of the movement. It means a lot to me. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Tell your friends. Tell your parents. Tell your cousins. Tell your kids. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you in the next video. Be there or be squared.